Okay. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. My name is Joel Hauer, and most of you know me, and we have probably had some sort of contact through Vantage. Andrea, our trainer, is also on the line here to help out with questions. Um, so anyhow, today what we're going to do is we are going to show you how to build out a sales presentation. And specifically, we're going to be doing a refinance sales presentation. Um, Obviously, since rates are still very, incredibly low, uh, we wanted to take the opportunity to show you some of the features that work very well and how to show a refinance sales presentation for your clients. So we'll go ahead and jump into it. Um, and and we're going to go over to the sales presentation tab. Hey, Andrea,
Yes.
could you forward the meeting link to Matt Ackerman? He said he's trying to get into the meeting, but he's not able to.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so now we're here in the sales presentation tab. So what I'm going to do, I already have a prospect in my CRM that we're going to use to build out this sales presentation. And the way that I'm going to get them into the sales presentation here is I'm actually going to go over to this box on the right, and I'm going to click on Import Client. So today we're going to be doing a presentation for Sarah and Brad Homeowner. So I'm just going to put Sarah, which is the main borrower's name, in the search box, and let the system find her for me. So as you can see here, it found Sarah, and so then we can just click on her name. And what the system is doing right now is basically creating a new blank sales presentation that you can now see right here under the Quick Select a Recent Plan dropdown. And Sarah and Brad Homeowner are highlighted right here. Okay, so in sales presentations, for those of you who have been through some training on this before, you're probably already aware that there's three main tabs in sales presentations: Manage, Borrow, and Present. You're always going to start on the Manage tab, and that's how you're going to be either bringing in a new client or starting a new presentation. So what we're going to do here is just work through the Manage tab and complete what is necessary here. So you can see in the loan application that I have in the CRM that I've started, I've already told the system that I'm going to be doing a refinance for this borrower. So that's already pulling over here as a refinance. But you could obviously change it to whatever else you needed it to be. But for today, we're doing a refinance. So in this plan title section, this is a free-form field, and this is where you can type in what you want to call this plan. So for this case, I'm going to just call this. Call it two refinance options. Okay, so that plan title is going to pull over to our finished presentation. You can see down into the client information section, some of this information or all of this information is pulling over from what's already in the CRM for this client. So you can see I have left some fields blank, but I do have just some of the basic contact information filled out. One other thing that you can do over here is you can put in your credit score for the borrower. So for today's example, I'm just going to put in a 780 credit score for the borrower. If you were running a credit report in Vantage prior to exporting your loan app to Encompass, that credit report would populate your credit score or scores right here. And in addition to that, it would also populate their current liabilities. I know that some of you prefer to run credit in Encompass, and that's okay. Just be aware that you'll need to put in the credit score manually, and then also any liabilities that you want to show on the presentation. For today's example, we're going to keep it pretty simple, and all we're going to put under their current liabilities is their current mortgage payment. Now, obviously, there might be scenarios where maybe you're doing a cash out refinance and you're going to be consolidating some other debt for this borrower. So if that's the case, then you might want to add some of the other liabilities that you're going to be paying off. But for today's example, um, I'm just going to put in their current mortgage because this was, I'm not going to be trying to show debt consolidation or anything like that. So really what we're going to end up with is a comparison of their current loan and a couple of refinance loan options. So under current liabilities, I'm going to click on add liability, and under type, I'm going to select mortgage. And then if you do select mortgage, then you're going to get this details button. And if you click on that, it'll open up this current mortgage details box. And on the left-hand side, you see this column of fields that you can complete. You want to be as thorough as you can here as far as the information that you're putting in for their current mortgage. Obviously, it helps if you've closed a loan for them previously, because chances are you probably have all of this information. And if you haven't if you're doing a refinance and this is the first time you've worked with that client, you may just need to work with them, look at their mortgage statement, and even their mortgage statement might not have all of these pieces of information. But we're going to go through and fill this out, and you'll be able to see what this looks like. So in this case, we're going to say that the current property value is $550. And the original property value when Sally and Brad homeowner bought this property about 2.5 years ago was $460. Obviously, this is assuming in the Denver metro area where this property value probably went up a lot, but obviously you could put in whatever is appropriate for your area or for your specific property. Okay, this is their primary residence. Their current loan is a 30-year fixed loan, so I'm just going to leave those as is. You could use the drop-downs to change them if necessary. Their current servicer is Franklin American. And their original loan amount on their current loan started at $414. And the original start date of their current mortgage was 5/27/2014. Their interest rate on their current loan is 4.375%. And their current balance, this is actually, if you've done their loan before, you could potentially look at their amortization schedule based on what their minimum payment schedule would be. However, I've talked to Sarah and Brad, and they've been paying a little bit more aggressively on their current loan. So where they'd normally probably be around $398,000 for their current loan balance, they've actually paid it down to about $393,000. So another thing to be aware of here is that, one second, I'm going to mute an attendee that I'm getting a little feedback from. Okay. So in the current loan balance, you don't want to just put their outstanding principal balance, but this is where you also would want to add in an estimate for how much their payoff is going to be. So for this client, if their outstanding loan balance is about $393,000, based on how much interest, if I'm going to, play it safe and roll in a full month's worth of interest, I'm going to be probably rolling in about $1,400 or just over that. That might be a little bit more than I need, but I'd rather aim a little high and have that come down if necessary. So for this case, with the current outstanding loan balance plus what I'm estimating for the payoff, I'm going to put in, oops, I'm going to put in 394, 447. So just always remember that when you populate this field here, that you're including the payoff. Okay, and you can see that it's automatically calculating the principal and interest portion of the payment based on the original loan amount, the term, and the interest rate right down here. Okay, so then over on the right-hand side here, this is where you can put in the rest of the details for their current payment. So for their property taxes, they're currently paying $250 a month, and their homeowner's insurance actually seems like a pretty good deal for that price of property, and that's at $90 a month. And lastly, when they originally purchased this house, they only put 10% down, so they did have mortgage insurance. And so currently, they're paying $121 in mortgage insurance. And I'm going to tell the system that since they're currently in a conventional loan, that their mortgage insurance would automatically drop off at 78% LTV. Their property doesn't have any HOA dues, and I don't have anything for the other field that I need to add in here to their payment. So that should build out their current mortgage details. One thing to note on this page, if their current loan is an FHA, VA, or USDA loan, you would want to check this box right here. What that would do is it would change the information under the mortgage insurance section just a little bit, so that you could appropriately put in, for example, like the FHA mortgage insurance premium into their payment. So just make a note of that. If their current loan happens to be one of these three types, just check that box. So now that we've filled this all out, I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And now we've got their current mortgage details in here, as you can see. And we can also do this over on the Manage tab, where we'll go next. But obviously, this drop down under Payoff is where I'm going to tell the system, do I want to pay this loan off as part of this transaction? And obviously, if we're refinancing a primary residence, yes, we're going to pay this loan off. So I'm going to leave that at yes. The next section for important objectives, this is where you can add some notes that will show on the final report. So say, for example, I've talked to Sarah and Brad, and they want to roll the closing costs into the loan amount. So maybe I'll just put a little note there so that on the final presentation they see that I've made a note of that. Their monthly cash flow goals, they want to lower their monthly payment. Or possibly shorten loan term. So I'm going to show them, when we get to the Manage tab, I'm going to show them a new 30-year, and I'm also going to show them what a 20-year might look like. So we'll show those two options, and they kind of want to see both based on my initial conversation. So I'm going to put a note in here about that. This third one, cost of ownership goals, I usually just delete that. I normally don't have anything really profound or great to put in there, but you could add another important objective here as well. Maybe your borrower is doing a cash out refinance, and because they want to build a garage or make some other home improvements or whatever the case may be, you could add another important objective in here, and that will show on the final report. Okay, so that's really all that you really need to know on the Manage tab for right now. The last thing that I'll mention real quick, this referral partner section, if you hit this plus to expand it, you can associate this sales presentation with a referral partner. Now, let me be clear, it's not a co-branded presentation. That's only for open house flyers. You can't co-brand a loan presentation. But just for your own tracking purposes, if you wanted to associate this sales presentation with one of the referral partners that you have in your CRM, you could do that, and it would track. Maybe over the course of a year, you've created 15 sales presentations that are tied to, Jane Smith, a realtor that you do a lot of business with. So that's what that section's for. It won't be co-branded, but it is for kind of tracking purposes to see how many sales presentations you've done with a given partner. Okay, so that's going to be the Manage tab, excuse me. And now next, what we can do is go over to the Borrow tab. So on the Borrow tab, this is where we are going to build out our new loan options. So you can see right here, this top blue box. That's Sarah and Brad's current mortgage. So I can build out up to 3 alternatives. So you can see right here, I've got alternative 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to build out 2 because they want to see a 30-year and a 20-year. So I'm going to expand alternative 2, and I'm also just going to, just so I'm pulling down the same base loan amount, I'm going to, before I start adding any other loan information, I'm going to click on duplicate alternative number 1. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call this first option 30-year conventional. And then alternative number 2, I'm going to change the name to 20-year conventional. You can obviously name these whatever you choose to, but I usually try to keep it pretty simple and straightforward. Okay, so let's start building out loan option number 1. So underneath loan program, you can see I've got this this edit button. So I'm going to click on here, and that's going to open up my my options to select my pricing engine. This top option right here is our integration with Optimal Blue. So once I click on that, it's going to open up Optimal Blue in an iframe, and that's what we're going to be using today. There's also an option to use the built-in pricing engine, and that will populate an average rate. Say, for example, you're choosing like a 30-year conventional loan, it will choose kind of like a national average rate and then add 0.25% to it. So if you use the pricing engine, the built-in pricing engine, it will pull in a rate. It's probably going to be higher than what you intend to choose, but the reason that we have this option in here is that if you're pricing a loan program that we don't price through Optimal Blue, you're going to be better off using this built-in pricing engine because you can go in and override the rate that it pulls back into your loan program. So just be aware that if you're building out, like say for example, in Colorado, if you're doing like a CHFA loan, that's not priced through Optimal Blue. So you'd want to use the built-in pricing engine to do that. We're just going to use Optimal Blue today, so I'm going to click on the top option and open up Optimal Blue. Okay, so once we get into Optimal Blue here, you can see that it looks and feels just like Optimal Blue, that the way that you're used to seeing it when you access it through Encompass or even on the website. And you can see it's pulling over my loan amount, my estimated value, my FICO, all of that stuff. So in this case, all I really need to do is check and make sure that all the information looks okay. I'm going to come down here to the bottom. Because I'm doing a refi, I'm going to tell the system that I want 50-day desired lock period, and I want a conventional 30-year fixed. So I'm going to go ahead and click submit. So once you get to the search results page, you can see that I'm getting this message here. Don't worry about this. This isn't an error. This is just a message that pops up because of the way that Vantage and Optimal Blue are integrated. When you see this message, you can just click OK, and it goes away. Okay. So now that I'm on my search results page, you can see one thing that I want to make a point to emphasize here is that you can see that I've got two tabs that are showing as full product listing. When you're searching for pricing in a sales presentation in Vantage, you always want to make sure that you go to the tab that says full product listing that's farther to the right. I know some Crestline folks, there's additional tabs here as well, but just make sure that you're going. It's always going to default to the tab that's furthest to the left that says full product listing. Just make sure that you click over to the one that's further to the right. And the reason why, I'll show you in a second, is to be able to get to the CRM button that you're going to press to bring that pricing back in. You're not going to find it in this tab to the left. You need to be in the full product listing tab that's to the right. So it looks like Wells Fargo has the best rates on a 30-year fixed with a 50-day lock period. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that to open it up. Looks like I've still got a spinning bar up here. There we go. Is that working better? There we go. Okay, so now I'm in Wells Fargo 50-day pricing, and I'm going to price this at 3.65. And so what I'm going to do is follow this over to the right, and you can see there I've got a CRM button. So I'm going to click on that button. One thing that I want to mention first is obviously you can see that this rate would come with a $1,600 rate associated credit. That will pull back into the closing costs. Obviously you can choose to delete it later, and I'll show you that in a little bit when we get to that point. It will automatically pull in, but we can choose to not show that if you would rather not show that credit to the borrower at this point. So now you can see for alternative number one, I brought in my 30-year conventional fixed at 3.65, and so now I've got my payment over here. But what I need to do is I need to bring in my taxes and insurance as well. So one thing that I can do that's kind of a nice shortcut, I already put in the some of this information for the current loan. So I'm going to click on Copy from Current Liabilities and bring over the property taxes and the homeowner's insurance. Now the one thing that you want to be aware of is that their current loan had mortgage insurance, but based on their current LTV, it looks like we're probably going to be able to get their mortgage insurance removed with this new loan. So in this case, I'm just going to go in and zero out the mortgage insurance because that won't be necessary anymore. So now I can click Save, and I should have my total PITI payment in alternative number one. So here you can see that updated. And now we're going to go down and build out alternative number two. So I'm going to click on Edit Program. I'm going to go back into Optimal Blue. Just make sure all my information looks okay again. And instead of a 30-year this time, I'm going to be searching for a 20-year. And I'm going to do a 50-day rate lock again. And then click Submit. And there's this message again. Just go ahead and click OK. Now that I'm in the search results page, I'm going to go over to the right-hand full product listing tab. And it looks like US Bank might be better on a 20-year. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to price it at 3.375. And again, this is coming in with a rate associated credit of $828. And I'm going to follow that over and click on CRM and pull that pricing back into alternative two. And then I'm going to go in to finalize my payment. and I've got another shortcut here. Now I can copy this from my first alternative. So I'm going to bring down the property taxes and the homeowner's insurance, and now you can see I don't have any mortgage insurance because I copied it from the loan from the payment that I just built out. And then I can go ahead and click Save. Okay, so now I've got a 30-year and a 20-year built out. If you wanted to build out a third alternative, you could do that here. So say your borrower also wanted to see a 15-year, you could do this, or maybe they wanted to see some other alternative. But I'm just going to build out these two for right now. So the next thing that we want to do is scroll down on the Borrow tab here, and now we want to build out our closing costs, and we're going to do that in the closing cost impact section. So you can see the blue column is their current mortgage, and so we need to build out closing costs for the 30-year conventional and the 20-year conventional. So we can jump into the Edit button by Edit Closing Costs, and we're going to open up this window here. And you can see that there's a number of fields in here, but one thing that we've built out to hopefully make life easier for you is under this template drop-down, you can select conventional closing cost template, and you can see that we've got other templates in here as well. So for today's example, I'm just going to select the conventional closing cost template, and you can see a lot of our standard costs for closing costs are going to populate in here. There are a few things that I'm going to edit here, and I'll talk through those as I go ahead and do that. The first thing is on a refi for a loan amount. I've run an estimate with my local title company, and it looks like my title closing fee is probably going to be about $410 or so. So I'm going to reduce that the other title fees there. Let's see, I've got an appraisal in at $500. Just be aware if your appraisal is going to be different, you might want to change that amount. I've got credit report defaulted in here as 86. If you're only doing one borrower, it might be less, so you might want to adjust that. And then the lender's title. I've also run a quote for for how much the title is going to be on this, and I've left that at 0 in this template just because that's going to be different on every transaction and every loan that you do. So in this case, I'm estimating that my title insurance for this loan is going to be about $850. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. And the transfer tax, there's not going to be a transfer tax on a refinance, so I'm going to leave that at 0. The next section down here is for the escrows and prepaids. So here's how I usually do this for a refinance. Based on the number of months that you're estimating that you need to collect for your homeowner's insurance and taxes, you'll want to put it in here under homeowner's insurance and then under tax reserves. This escrows field, you could use that too, but typically I would normally just use that more on a purchase. But as long as you make sure that you're putting the correct number of the calculations for the correct number of months in here for your taxes and insurance, then it should work out. So since my taxes, I'm going to go to insurance first. My insurance is $90 a month, and say I'm closing in November, I'm going to estimate that I need $810, 9 months worth of homeowner's insurance that I'm going to collect. And then for property taxes, I'm also going to need 9 months of that, and that was $250, so 250 times 9 is going to be $2250. So that's how much I'm estimating that I'm going to need to collect based on when the insurance is going to renew, and also when the taxes are, based on when we're closing and how many months of taxes we need to collect at that point in the year. The prepaid interest field, if you click in this field, it'll automatically bring up this prepaid interest helper. And you can see that it defaults to 15 days, and it'll automatically calculate how much your daily interest amount is, and how much the 15 days would be. So in this case, I'm gonna show 15 days. So then all I need to do is click on Input. If I scroll back down, you can see that the prepaid interest just populated for me right there. The last section that I want to mention here is that when we priced this in Optimal Blue, if you remember, we actually priced it over par and we had a $1,600 credit. So say I'm building out this sales presentation and maybe I don't want to show that. It does automatically populate in here, but if I don't want to show that to my borrower, then I can click this red X and delete that line, and then just click OK there. And then you also want to zero it out in this field that totals everything up at the top. So just click 0 there because I don't want to show a lender credit at this point. If you wanted to leave it in, you could choose to do that. And then the last thing that I'm going to do in this closing cost section is if I scroll up to the top, you can see that there's a column for financed. So basically, if my borrower says I want to roll all these closing costs into the loan amount, after I've finalized what these closing costs are going to be, then I can go through here and just check these boxes one at a time and tell the system that I want all of these closing costs to be rolled into the loan. Okay, so now that we've clicked the finance box next to all of those, we can go ahead and click on close. And now we've built out our closing costs for that, plus it's rolled the closing costs into my loan amount up in option number 1. So now, typically it takes the longest to build out the closing costs for the first option. And now if I go over to the 20-year conventional option and click on Edit Closing Costs, now I have a shortcut here to tell the system that I do want to copy the closing costs from the loan option that I just built out. So I'm going to click on Copy, and it's going to bring in all the same closing costs. The one thing that would change here is that it did bring over my prepaid interest. However, my loan amount or the interest rate and then the amount of prepaid interest might change a little bit. So if I click on this box, you can see that 15 days, at a lower interest rate is going to be a little bit less in interest. So I'm going to click to input that and put in the new prepaid interest amount. So you can see that that's there. All of my boxes here are already clicked to finance these into the loan amount. And so that's really as easy. That's a nice shortcut to be able to build out closing costs for an additional alternative. So I'm going to click on Close there. And now I've built out the 2 loan options up here and the closing costs for both of those loan options in the closing cost impact section. Okay. So the next section right down here is the monthly payment impact section. So this shows obviously a breakdown of their current mortgage, and then it shows what the estimated payment for the proposed options over here. So you can see right down here, this is showing that they're going to be saving $357 a month on the 30-year conventional loan compared to their current 30-year fixed loan. As far as the 20-year loan goes, it's only going to cost them about $115 more per month than what they're currently paying. So that's where you'd want to have a conversation with your borrower. What's your biggest motivation? To save $357 a month, or to pay your loan off more quickly and maybe just have your payment go up a little bit? The last section on the Borrow tab is going to be the future wealth impact. And there's some cool things that you can do in this section right here. So again, we see in the blue column, that's going to be their current loan. And what you can do here is you can obviously make some assumptions about what about the future as far as the time frame, how far out into the future you want to go. Say for right now, I want to look at 30 years, and say I want to do a property appreciation rate of 3%. You could change that You can also use these sliders here to change it. Maybe I only want to do 2.5%. For this example, I'll go ahead and leave it at, I'm going to go ahead and bring it back up to 3. And for the savings rate, I usually don't, I usually just put a 0 in for savings rate because, even if they do end up paying off a mortgage early, who knows what they're going to do with that money. I'm not a financial planner. I'm not going to advise them, how to, where to put that money if they're not spending it on a mortgage eventually. So I really just want to show them the nuts and bolts of what these mortgage numbers are going to look like. Another thing I'm going to do is, instead of showing saving, I'm going to click over to repaying. So when I click over to repaying, I'm going to be showing how long is it going to take you to be debt-free? How long are you going to be repaying these mortgages? So right now, obviously, you can see that they could do a new 30-year mortgage, or they could do a new 20-year mortgage. One thing I want to show you here, though, that's kind of a neat tool, is obviously you can see right up here in the section above, I can save them, probably around $357 on a new 30-year loan. So if I say to Sarah and Brad, hey, how comfortable are you with your current payment of $25.28? And they may say, yeah, Joel, we're pretty comfortable with that payment, but we know rates are lower now, and we want to see if we can get a little bit lower payment, a little bit lower rate. And I say, okay, that's great. Let me show you if you're comfortable with your current payment. Let me show you what it might look like if you reinvest that $357 savings every month back towards the principal of this new loan. So if I click on this calculator next to this minimum payment of $21.71, it's going to bring up this extra payments box. And I can tell the system that I want to add a new payment. And I want to add a new payment of $357. And in this interval drop-down, I can choose, do I want to do that at closing? Is this a one-time payment towards principal? Is this every month, annually? I'm going to choose monthly. So I'm going to say, if you're disciplined and you're putting this extra money back towards this loan every month, let me show you what that'll look like. And then for the duration, I'm going to show until loan is paid off. So then we could click Save. One other thing that I want to show in here before I do click Save is if I click to add another payment, there's a lot of different options in here. Say your borrower gets an annual bonus, and maybe they get a $5,000 annual bonus, and and you want to show them what would that look like if you take that annual bonus and you put part of it or all of it towards your principal every month. So then you could put in a $5,000 annual bonus, put it towards your principal every year, and show them what that looks like. One other cool option too is that if your borrower, say your borrower is getting back $1,500, or they will be getting back $1,500 from their current escrow account, you could show them what that would look like if once they get that back, within 30 days of their current loan being paid off. You could show them what it would look like to put that money back towards the principal of their current loan. For this example, I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I'm just going to show them reinvesting their monthly savings back towards principal. But I just wanted to talk about some of the other options in this section. So for this 30-year loan, once I click Save, now it's going to show my minimum payment at $21.71 plus $357 per month. So what does that look like? Well, let's look down here. This is where we're probably going to see the biggest impact, is how soon are they going to be debt-free if they reinvest that $357 a month back towards their principal. And let's see, 260. So they'll have this new 30-year loan paid off in about 22 years and 4 months, or 3 months or so. So you can see right there, they've got about 327 months left on their current mortgage, and I've just showed them how I can lower their minimum monthly payment But if they continue paying the same amount per month as they are right now, they could pay this 30-year loan off in just a little over 22 years. So that's I think a really effective way to be able to show a borrower, what a refinance can do for them. And some borrowers are going to want to just have the monthly savings to do whatever they please with. But at least you can, as a loan officer, you can provide that information to them so that you're showing them, how they can manage that wealth and that real estate asset over time. Another thing that you can play around with, as I mentioned before, is the time frame. So, maybe your borrower kind of wants to see, what's my shorter term wealth impact? Well, let's bring this time frame down to 5 years. And you can see they're still going to have a positive wealth impact, making these assumptions of, your property is still going to go up 3% every year, and you're going to be continuing to pay this mortgage down. Obviously, the farther out you go, the bigger the wealth impact is going to be. Let's bring it out to 15 years. So you can see the wealth impact is going to get larger there. And really, what where does this number come from? Sometimes people ask me that. Where does this 50,619 come from? Well, you can see that you've got your total payments, and right now this is the total payments over a 15-year time period. So it's your total payments. It's going to be your estimated equity at that point minus your total payments is going to equal this number down here, and then the 50,619 is the difference between this 238 and their estimated difference between equity and payments on their current loan. So basically, if you took the 238, 318 minus 187, 699, that's where you'd get the 50,619. Same thing over here, the 259 minus the 187, that's where you're going to get the wealth impact of 71,000. So let's bring this back out to 30 years. That's where you're going to see the biggest wealth impact on both mortgages. Obviously, you're going to see an even larger wealth impact with a shorter term loan because they're going to be paying this 20-year loan off even sooner. But for this sake, let's assume that my borrower, the new 30-year loan is going to make the most sense for them. You do have the option to highlight a proposed alternative, so you can see where it says proposed down here, and I've got a little button that I can, a little circle that I can check here. I'm going to leave this underneath the 30-year conventional because I think that meets my clients, Sarah and Brad's needs and what they're looking to do the most. So now that we've built out everything on the Borrow tab, now you can go over to the Present tab. On the Present tab, this is where you can choose what you want the presentation to show to the borrower. So I always recommend including the cover and introduction page. Those are generally going to default for you. And I've saved my default as the 2-page detailed summary. So if I want to see what that looks like, I can actually click on this page with the question mark here and just pull up a generic preview of what that 2-page summary looks like. And I like that. I think it looks good. I'm gonna choose to do that one. You can also see there's a number of other options that just by checking a box, I can add an amortization schedule. I can add my detailed fees if I wanted to do, and any of this other information that you're welcome to look through on your own to see if it's something that you like or something that you want to add to your presentation. Today we're going to keep it pretty simple. We're just going to do cover, introduction, and 2-page. So now I'm going to go over here and click on this link to preview the client presentation. And in a separate tab, it's going to open up a preview of the presentation that I've just built out. So you can see I've got these different tabs here, cover page, introduction. On the cover page, it does say who it's prepared for. So it shows that it's prepared for Sarah and Brad homeowner, the date that it was prepared, and it has my contact information and is branded to me. The introduction page is going to have some, legal disclosure and some other information as well. But one thing that I do want to point out is on the objectives, objective summary / notes section. These are where the notes that I put in on the Manage tab are pulling into the final presentation. I'm showing here that I was listening to my borrower, that they said they wanted to roll the closing costs into loan amount, and that they wanted to look at a couple different options, one to lower their monthly payment or possibly shorten their loan term. So that's where these will pull in right here on your presentation, and that just lets your borrower know that you have their best interest in mind, and you're capturing what their objectives for this presentation or for this transaction are. So next, let's go over to the Summary and Payment Information tab. This is going to show the summary and payment information, and the time frame that we chose to show this on is for the next 30 years. So in the first column, we're showing their current mortgage. So you can see here's their monthly payment and the other information for their current loan. And here's where we have the other options for, here's the 30-year conventional, and here's the 20-year conventional. You can see that because I clicked that proposed button underneath the 30-year conventional, this one is showing as proposed. It says proposed right over top of it. It's going to obviously have some other information that you could walk through with your borrower as far as, how soon are you going to be debt-free? Well, if you stay in your current loan, you're going to be paying that off for 327 months. And then you can go through, what their payment would be, their minimum payment, or their minimum payment plus that reinvestment of the savings back towards principal, which would allow them to potentially pay this new 30-year loan off in just a little over 22 years. And same thing for the 20-year over here. It's going to show how soon they're going to be debt-free and the wealth impact over that time period. The last tab here is the Payment and Wealth Comparison tab. On this section right, excuse me, this section right here is going to show the monthly payment impact. So this is showing a breakdown of the monthly payment for their current mortgage, the proposed mortgage for the 30-year, and also for the 20-year. And it's showing them how much savings they would have per month, or how much more their payment might be if they decided to do the 20-year. Over on the right here, it's going to show what their minimum payments look like over time. You can see this black line is going to be their current mortgage, where their current payment is going to continue for another about 27, 28 years, and then they're going to have that mortgage paid off. The conventional loan, 30-year conventional loan, is actually going to have a lower payment, and you can see that the minimum payment would last for 30 years right there. And then the 20-year is obviously going to have a little bit higher payment, but you can see based on the graph, they're going to be paying that loan off much sooner than their current loan. And then the last section here is the wealth impact over 30 years. Obviously, this is all driven by what time frame you choose to put on the Borrow tab. Obviously, I changed it back to 30 years, even though we were kind of playing around with it a little bit. And it's also showing what our property appreciation rate is. So this is the question that this section wants to answer, or wants to help the borrower answer, is does this make sense over time? Well, I think the numbers really make a strong case that either one of these options would make a lot of sense for them over time. They're going to have a pretty big wealth impact, by doing a new 30-year loan and reinvesting that savings of $357 per month, or if they decide to commit to the 20-year loan term, they'll have an even bigger wealth impact over time. And that's what this graph is showing here, that the wealth impact for the 30-year loan is going to be this line here, and for the 20-year is going to be even higher. Sometimes I'll have people ask me, well, why does it start out negative? Well, the reason for that is because obviously whenever you're doing a refinance, there's going to be a cost associated with that, and in this case, it's going to be loan closing costs. So those loan closing costs are taken into account that, for that first year or so, you're going to have a little bit of a negative wealth impact because you're rolling those closing costs into the loan. But you can see that they quickly break even on that, and they're going to have a positive wealth impact with either one of these loan options over time. So now that you've reviewed the preview of the presentation, if you're happy with how this looks and now you're ready to share this with your borrower, there are a few different options. The first and um, probably the simplest, if you're going to be meeting with that borrower in person or you want to email them a PDF, there is a PDF option right here at the top of the screen where you can click on that and you'll be able to download that PDF to your computer and print it out or share it via email, however you choose. You also have the option to publish to web. If I click on publish to web, you can see that it's going to populate a unique URL right here. And I could take that URL and copy and paste that into an email and send this to my borrower. Another unique idea that somebody had the other day was actually including that in the text portion of a BombBomb email. If you're currently a BombBomb user, that might be an effective way to send them a link to this presentation. This will create a way for them to click on this link and view this presentation online, very similar to the way that we are doing it right now. One nice thing about sending this link to them is that you will actually have tracking notifications that will let you know when your client has viewed this presentation online. And I'll show you in a minute where you can go into the Client IQ section and you can see when they viewed it, see how long they viewed the presentation. It's a little big brotherish, but you don't need to share with them that you know that they viewed it. You can just have impeccable timing when you call them back and say, hey, wanted to follow up with you. Hopefully you got that, had a chance to look at that presentation I sent you, and and take the conversation from there. So you do have the opportunity to share that link with them. And then there's also an option to share my screen. Personally, I don't love the screen sharing tool that is built into the sales presentation. So what I typically use to do a screen share with a borrower is just use join.me. It's a website that allows free screen sharing, and it works very well. I think it's a little bit easier than the tool that they have built in here. So if any of you have any questions about join.me, Andrew or I could help you out with that. The last option here is to do a recording, where you can record a video of yourself, a screen recording, where you could be talking through the presentation and telling, communicating what you want to about that presentation to the borrower. So anyhow, that's kind of the gist of creating this. Obviously, the more often that you do this, the faster you're going to get at it. And if I wasn't talking through each step of what I was doing here, I probably could have built out this whole presentation in, probably 10 to 15 minutes. But does anyone have any questions about anything that we did here or anything that you saw? And if you do have questions, feel free to either type it into the chat box. You can type it into the chat box right here, or you also should have the ability to right-click on your face, on your picture, and unmute yourself, and feel free to ask a question. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. I'm going to stay on for a little bit in case anybody does have any questions. But thanks for joining us today, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and feel free to stick around and ask any questions that you might have.